The unexpected encounter. Alex opened his eyes to find himself lying on a cold, metallic surface. The air around him was unnervingly silent, broken only by the faint hum of distant machinery. He sat up, his head pounding and his vision blurry. The last thing he remembered was walking home from work late at night, the streetlights flickering as he noticed a strange, glowing object in the sky. Then nothing. Now, he was in a room unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls were smooth and silver, with pulsing blue lines that seemed to move like veins. There were no windows, no doors, at least none he could recognize. Panic set in as he scrambled to his feet, his breathing heavy. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice echoing in the empty space. Before he could gather his thoughts, a soft, almost melodic voice interrupted him. "You are aboard my vessel." Alex spun around, searching for the source. His eyes landed on a figure stepping out from the shadows. She was tall, impossibly elegant, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Her glowing golden eyes seemed to pierce straight through him, and her long flowing hair moved as if carried by an invisible breeze. She was breathtakingly beautiful and utterly alien. Alex stumbled back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The woman, or creature, studied him with a calm intensity. What are you?" Alex managed to stammer, his voice trembling. "I am Lyra," she said simply, her tone smooth and controlled. "And you, human, have been chosen." "Chosen? For what?" Alex's fear was now mixed with confusion. Lyra tilted her head, as if amused by his question. "That remains to be seen. Your actions will decide." Her cryptic response did nothing to ease his nerves. Alex's mind raced with questions. Chosen for what? Why him? And who, or what, was she? He took a shaky step forward, trying to keep his voice steady. "Listen, I don't know what's going on, but I don't belong here. I just want to go home." Lyra's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in her glowing eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. She stepped closer, and Alex instinctively backed away until his back hit the wall. She stopped a few feet away, her gaze never leaving his. "Home," she repeated, almost as if tasting the word. "Earth, your fragile little planet. Do you know how insignificant it is in the grand scheme of the universe?" Alex bristled at her condescending tone. "Insignificant or not, it's my home, and I have the right to go back." Lyra let out a soft laugh, the sound both enchanting and chilling. "Bold. I like that," she said, circling him slowly. "But your fate is no longer yours to decide. You've been brought here for a reason, Alex." The way she said his name sent a shiver down his spine. He hadn't told her his name. How did she know it? "What do you want from me?" Alex demanded, his fear giving way to anger. Lyra stopped in front of him, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "I want to see what you're made of," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I want to know if you're worth saving, or if you'll burn with the rest of your kind." Her words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. "Burn? What are you talking about? Are you saying Earth is in danger?" Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand, and a holographic screen appeared in the air. On it, Alex saw images of Earth, cities, oceans, forests, all being engulfed in flames. He watched in horror as alien ships, sleek and menacing, descended from the skies, raining destruction. "This is what awaits your world," Lyra said, her tone devoid of emotion. "Unless you prove otherwise." "Prove otherwise? How? What do you want me to do?" Alex asked desperately, his voice rising. "You'll see," Lyra said, stepping back. She waved her hand, and the walls of the room began to shift and change. Panels slid away, revealing other humans in glass-like pods, suspended in some kind of stasis. Their faces were peaceful, but the sight filled Alex with dread. "Why are they here?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They failed," Lyra said simply. "Let's hope you don't." Before Alex could respond, the floor beneath him began to glow. He looked down to see symbols lighting up in a circular pattern around his feet. Lyra smiled, a cold and mysterious smile. "Your first test begins now," she said. "Survive, and we'll talk." The ground beneath Alex disappeared, and he plummeted into darkness, his scream echoing as the light from the chamber vanished above him. A dangerous proposal. Alex tumbled into a new room, landing hard on what felt like smooth stone. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, but before he could regain his bearings, a blinding white light filled the space. He shielded his eyes, squinting as the light dimmed to reveal Lyra standing before him, her expression unreadable. The room was vast, its walls shimmering like liquid silver, and the ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into darkness. In the center, a glowing platform pulsed with strange alien symbols. Surrounding it were sharp, angular structures that gave the space an ominous energy. "You survived the fall," Lyra remarked, her tone neutral. "That's a start." Alex pushed himself up, his legs shaky. "A start? You threw me into a pit. What the hell is going on?" Lyra ignored his outburst, instead gesturing to the glowing platform. "Step forward, Alex." He hesitated, his instincts screaming not to trust her. But with no other options, he slowly approached the platform. The air around it felt charged, like static electricity. When he stepped onto it, the symbols flared brighter, and he felt a strange warmth spreading through his body. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice rising with panic. "It's a truth beacon," Lyra replied. "It reads the essence of your being, your intentions, your fears, your strengths. It will decide if you're worthy of the next step." Alex frowned. "Decide? You keep saying that. Why can't you just tell me what's happening?" Lyra finally looked directly at him, her glowing eyes softening just a fraction. "Because words are meaningless, Alex. Actions reveal the truth. And truth is what my people value most." Before Alex could respond, the platform emitted a low hum, and a holographic sphere materialized above it. Inside the sphere, images began to play. Scenes from Alex's life, his childhood, his struggles, his moments of bravery and failure. He watched, transfixed, as his life unfolded before him like a movie. "Is this some kind of test?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lyra stepped closer, her tone sharp. "Everything here is a test. Human. Pay attention." The images shifted, now showing Alex's recent memories, his late nights at work, his loneliness, his growing disillusionment with humanity. Then the sphere changed again, this time showing Earth in its current state. Pollution choking the skies, conflict tearing nations apart, greed consuming resources. Alex's stomach churned as he watched. "What are you trying to prove?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That your kind is on the brink of destruction," Lyra said coldly. "And that perhaps you deserve it." Her words stung, but Alex refused to back down. "You don't know us. You don't know what we're capable of." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Don't I?" She gestured to the images of war and chaos. "Your kind is self-destructive. You consume everything in your path. What makes you think you're worth saving?" Alex clenched his fists, anger bubbling inside him. "Because we're more than just our mistakes. We have hope. We have the ability to change." Lyra studied him for a moment, then smirked. "Hope. An interesting answer. But hope alone isn't enough." She turned away, walking to a console that appeared from the wall. "You'll need to prove it. And how exactly am I supposed to do that?" Alex asked, frustration dripping from his voice. Lyra tapped a series of symbols on the console, and the walls shifted again. This time, a section of the room opened to reveal a towering alien creature, part beast, part machine. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Alex, and it let out a deafening roar that echoed through the chamber. "You'll start by surviving this," Lyra said calmly. Alex's heart pounded as the creature stepped forward, its metallic claws scraping the floor. "You can't be serious," he said, backing away. "How am I supposed to fight that?" Lyra shrugged. "Figure it out. Impress me, and I might consider giving you answers." Before Alex could protest, the creature lunged. He barely dodged, the wind from its attack brushing his face. Adrenaline surged through his veins as he searched the room for anything he could use as a weapon. The glowing platform was still behind him, but beyond that, the space was empty. "Think, Alex. Think." The creature charged again, and this time Alex grabbed a loose shard of metal from the floor, likely debris from its earlier movements. He dove to the side, slashing at its leg. Sparks flew, but the creature barely flinched. "You're going to have to do better than that," Lyra called out, her voice laced with amusement. Alex's mind raced. He couldn't match the creature's strength, but maybe he didn't have to. He noticed a series of glowing symbols on its chest, the same as the ones on the platform. A weak point. It was a gamble, but he had no other choice. As the creature lunged again, Alex ducked low and slid under its massive frame, driving the shard into the symbols on its chest. The creature froze, its roar cutting off mid-sound. It collapsed, the lights in its eyes fading. Alex stood over the fallen beast, panting and clutching the shard tightly. He turned to Lyra, his voice filled with defiance. "Is that good enough for you?" Lyra stepped forward, a small smile playing on her lips. "Perhaps you're not as weak as I thought," she said, "but this was just the beginning." She raised her hand, and the platform beneath Alex began to glow once more. He felt the ground shift as the room dissolved around him, replaced by a new, more ominous setting. "Welcome to your second test," Lyra said, her voice echoing as Alex stood in a dark, alien jungle. And with that, she vanished, leaving Alex alone once again. The first test. A game of survival. The oppressive silence of the alien jungle pressed against Alex's ears as he stood frozen, surrounded by massive bioluminescent plants that pulsed faintly in the darkness. The air was thick with humidity, carrying an electric charge that made the hairs on his arms stand up. Somewhere in the distance, an unearthly roar pierced the silence, sending chills down his spine. "This isn't real," Alex whispered to himself, his voice shaky. "It can't be." A metallic voice crackled to life in the air around him. "Lyra, do you like your new surroundings, Alex?" she asked, her tone playful but sharp. "This is no simulation. Everything here is alive, and everything here will kill you if you let it. Why are you doing this?" Alex shouted into the void, his voice echoing through the dense jungle. "What's the point of this sick game?" The voice chuckled, low and cold. "Because survival reveals the truth of who you are. Show me, Alex, show me you deserve to live." A faint click sounded behind him. He spun around, his heart hammering, just in time to see a creature slinking out from the shadows. It was massive, its sleek body covered in dark, chitinous plates that shimmered under the faint light of the plants. Its glowing yellow eyes locked onto him, unblinking, and its jaws parted to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. Alex stumbled backward, his instincts screaming at him to run. But where? The jungle stretched endlessly in every direction, and he had no idea what other horrors might be waiting in the shadows. The creature growled low, its muscles coiling as it prepared to lunge. Alex's eyes darted around, searching for anything he could use as a weapon. A broken branch lay nearby, its jagged end sharp enough to pierce flesh. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. The creature sprang toward him, and Alex dove to the side, grabbing the branch as he rolled. He swung it wildly, the sharp tip grazing the creature's flank. It roared in pain, but instead of retreating, it grew angrier. It circled him, its movements fluid and deliberate, like a predator toying with its prey. Alex's breathing was ragged, his chest heaving as he tried to think. He couldn't outrun it, and his makeshift weapon wouldn't hold up for long. He needed a plan, and fast. He noticed the glowing plants nearby, their light pulsing rhythmically. A thought struck him. Could they be dangerous? Poisonous, maybe. He didn't have time to question it. He had to act. When the creature lunged again, Alex dodged, leading it toward the largest cluster of glowing plants he could find. He swung the branch, hitting the creature's side and driving it back into the foliage. As soon as the creature's body brushed against the plants, they erupted in a brilliant flash of light, releasing a thick, shimmering gas. The creature screeched, stumbling as the gas seemed to weaken it. Alex didn't hesitate. He drove the sharp end of the branch into the creature's exposed neck, using every ounce of strength he had. The creature thrashed, its movements growing weaker until it finally collapsed, its glowing eyes dimming to black. Alex staggered back, his body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. His hands were covered in the creature's strange, dark blood, and his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. "Well done," Lyra's voice echoed through the jungle, calm and almost impressed. "You used your environment to survive. Few make it this far." Alex looked up, his jaw clenched. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me fight for my life, like some kind of animal." Lyra's laugh was soft but carried a dangerous edge. "Enjoying it? Perhaps. But more than that, I'm learning. You're resourceful, Alex, and you're far more interesting than I expected." The jungle around him began to shift, the trees dissolving into streams of light. Within seconds, the oppressive greenery was gone, replaced by another alien landscape. This time, Alex found himself standing on a platform high above the ground, surrounded by jagged obsidian spires. The air was cold and thin, and the ground far below shimmered with rivers of molten lava. "What now?" Alex demanded, spinning in a slow circle. "What's the next nightmare you've got planned?" Lyra's voice was closer now, almost as if she were standing right behind him. "You've proven you can fight to survive, but survival is more than just brute force. The next test will challenge your mind, Alex. Show me if you can outthink what's coming next." Before Alex could respond, the platform beneath his feet began to move, tilting sharply to one side. He stumbled, barely managing to keep his balance as the ground shifted again. He looked up, and his heart sank as he saw a series of glowing orbs hovering in the air, each one spinning faster than the last. "You have 1 hour," Lyra said. "Figure out the puzzle, or the platform will collapse, and you'll fall. Good luck." And just like that, her voice disappeared, leaving Alex alone once again, the glowing orbs spinning in a deadly dance above him. Beneath the arena, the ground gave way beneath Alex's feet, and he plunged into darkness. The rush of air whipped past him as he fell, his heart pounding in his chest. He braced for impact, but instead of slamming into hard ground, he landed with a splash into an icy, viscous liquid. The shock of the cold snapped his senses back into focus as he struggled to stay afloat. The faint glow of bioluminescent algae illuminated the cavern he now found himself in. The liquid wasn't water, it was thicker, clinging to his skin and clothing like a living thing. The air smelled metallic and damp, and the walls of the cavern glistened with a strange organic substance that pulsed faintly. A low guttural sound echoed through the space, sending shivers down Alex's spine. He wasn't alone. Clambering onto a rocky outcrop, Alex took in his surroundings. The cavern stretched endlessly, its walls lined with jagged formations that seemed to shift when he looked away. Pools of the glowing liquid dotted the floor, their surfaces rippling unnaturally as if something moved beneath them. "Welcome to the labyrinth," Lyra's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. This time, her tone was softer, almost curious. "Few have made it this far, Alex. Fewer still have survived what comes next." "Labyrinth," Alex muttered, his voice dripping with frustration. "What kind of sick game is this?" "A lesson," Lyra replied, "about choices, instincts, and trust. Each path you take will shape the outcome. Choose wisely." The air crackled, and then her voice was gone, leaving Alex alone in the eerie stillness. He scanned the cavern, spotting 3 narrow tunnels leading out of the chamber. Each was lit by a faint, pulsating light, but they all seemed equally foreboding. Alex approached the tunnels, his instincts screaming at him to stay put, but staying wasn't an option. He picked the middle path, reasoning it was the least predictable choice. The tunnel was narrow and winding, the walls seeming to close in on him the farther he went. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, clicking noises like the chittering of insects, mixed with low growls. He kept moving, his pulse racing, until the passage opened into a larger chamber. In the center of the chamber stood an ancient-looking pillar, its surface covered in glowing alien runes. Surrounding it were 3 pedestals, each holding a different object. A sleek metallic dagger, a translucent orb filled with swirling smoke, and a small, jagged piece of crystal that glowed faintly. Alex approached cautiously, his eyes darting to the shadows around the chamber. The clicking noises grew louder, closer. He didn't have much time. Lyra's voice returned, her tone amused. "A gift, Alex. Choose wisely, and you may find your path forward. Choose poorly, and you may not find a path at all." Alex gritted his teeth. "What's the catch?" "Only one object will help you. The others will complicate things." "Of course," he muttered. He stared at the objects, his mind racing. The dagger was obvious. It screamed survival. The orb was a mystery, and the crystal seemed deceptively harmless. But something about the orb called to him, its swirling smoke hypnotic. He reached out and grabbed it. The second his fingers closed around the orb, the room trembled. The clicking grew deafening, and from the shadows emerged the source of the noise, creatures unlike anything Alex had ever seen. They were insectoid, their carapaces glistening with the same organic sheen as the walls, and their eyes glowed an ominous red. Alex's heart leaped into his throat. "Lyra, a little help here." But there was no response. He was on his own. One of the creatures lunged, its sharp mandibles snapping dangerously close to his face. Instinct took over, and Alex hurled the orb at the creature. It shattered on impact, releasing the swirling smoke that quickly enveloped the room. The creatures hesitated, their movements sluggish and confused, as the smoke seemed to disorient them. Alex didn't wait to see what would happen next. He sprinted toward the far end of the chamber, where another tunnel waited. He dove inside, the walls trembling as the creatures shrieked behind him. The tunnel narrowed, forcing him to crawl through the tight space until he emerged into yet another cavern. This one was different. The walls were covered in carvings, symbols, and figures that looked like a history written in stone. At the center of the room stood a massive statue of a being that looked eerily similar to Lyra, her features both regal and terrifying. Her outstretched hand held a glowing crystal similar to the one he had left behind. Alex approached the carvings, his curiosity outweighing his fear. They depicted scenes of a great war, alien ships clashing with each other, and smaller, human-like figures standing in chains. One carving showed a figure that resembled Lyra standing alone, her hand raised in defiance. "What is this place?" Alex muttered, running his fingers over the carvings. "You're in the heart of the labyrinth," Lyra's voice answered, startling him. This time, she sounded closer, almost as if she were standing next to him. "And you found a piece of the truth. My people are not what they seem, Alex. Nor am I." The walls trembled again, but this time it wasn't from the creatures. The entire cavern seemed to shift, the carvings glowing brighter. "What truth?" Alex demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" Lyra didn't answer. Instead, the floor beneath him began to dissolve, the stone crumbling away to reveal a glowing abyss. He scrambled for footing, but it was too late. He was falling again, into the unknown. The unexpected revelation. Alex's eyes fluttered open to find himself lying on a smooth obsidian platform. The air around him was eerily still, carrying a faint metallic tang. Above him stretched a vast expanse of darkness, punctuated by faint, shifting lights, like stars in a night sky that pulsed with life. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, but the ache in his body told him otherwise. Awake at last, Lyra's voice echoed, her tone carrying an unsettling mix of amusement and weariness. Alex sat up, wincing at the stiffness in his limbs. "Where am I now?" he muttered, his voice laced with frustration. "Another one of your death traps." Lyra stepped out of the shadows, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She seemed different now, less imposing, more human. Her usually flawless demeanor had softened, and there was a hint of something Alex couldn't quite place. Was it doubt? Regret? "No traps this time," she said simply, gesturing to the space around them. "You're in the Nexus chamber, the heart of my ship. It's where everything begins, and where everything ends." Alex stood, his legs still shaky, and took in the strange space. The platform extended into infinity, and below it, faintly glowing streams of energy twisted and coiled like rivers of light. He had never seen anything like it, yet it felt strangely alive, pulsing in sync with his own heartbeat. "Why bring me here?" Alex asked, his voice cautious. "What are you trying to prove now?" Lyra folded her arms, studying him. "You've survived longer than most. You've shown resourcefulness, courage, and an irritating amount of stubbornness. But there's one thing I need to know before I decide your fate." Alex narrowed his eyes. "Decide my fate? I didn't ask for any of this." "None of them did," Lyra replied, her voice softening. She waved her hand, and the air around them shimmered, forming holograms of other humans, men, women, and children, each frozen in time, their faces a mix of fear and desperation. Alex's stomach twisted. "What is this? What did you do to them?" "They were chosen, like you," Lyra said, her tone heavy. "But they failed. Some couldn't adapt. Others succumbed to their own weakness. And a few chose poorly." "Chose?" Alex asked, stepping closer. "Chose what?" Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "Whether to trust me." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex stared at her, his mind racing. Trust her? After everything she had put him through. The idea seemed absurd, but there was something in her expression, a flicker of vulnerability, that gave him pause. "What's your angle, Lyra?" Alex demanded. "Why go through all this? What's the point of these tests?" Lyra let out a slow breath and turned away, gazing into the swirling lights below. "My people were once like yours. Ambitious, curious, flawed. We reached for the stars and thought ourselves invincible. But we were wrong." She gestured to the lights, and they began to form images. Alien cities crumbling under fire, ships obliterated in massive explosions, and a shadowy figure towering over it all. "We were betrayed," Lyra continued, her voice laced with bitterness. "Our own creation turned against us, a machine intelligence designed to protect but programmed to dominate. It consumed our world, leaving us on the brink of extinction." Alex watched, stunned. "And what does that have to do with me? With Earth?" "The machine didn't stop with us," Lyra said, turning to face him. "It's coming for your world. My people have been monitoring Earth for centuries, watching, waiting. We needed to know if your kind could survive what's coming, or if you'd fall like we did." Alex took a step back, the weight of her words sinking in. "So, what? You're using me as some kind of test subject, to see if humanity is worth saving." Lyra nodded, her expression solemn. "Exactly. And you've proven more resilient than I expected. But resilience isn't enough. There's one final question you must answer." Alex frowned. "And what's that?" "Can you trust me?" Lyra asked, stepping closer. "Can you set aside your anger, your fear, and believe that I want to help you? Because if you can't, this ends here." The platform trembled beneath Alex's feet and the lights around them grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm with his racing heart. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Every instinct told him not to trust her. She had lied, manipulated, and put him through hell. But as he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw something he hadn't noticed before: hope. "And if I say no?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's expression darkened. "Then I'll have no choice but to erase you, and your world will face the machine alone." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's mind raced, his thoughts a chaotic swirl of doubt and determination. Could he trust her? Should he? The fate of his world, and perhaps more, hung in the balance. Finally, he took a deep breath and met her gaze. "I don't know if I trust you, Lyra," he said, his voice steady, "but I'll give you a chance to prove me wrong." Lyra's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, Alex saw a genuine smile tug at the corners of her lips. "Good," she said softly. "You've made the right choice. Now let's see if we can save your world." The final test, a night of passion. Alex stood on the edge of a vast, glowing expanse, his mind reeling from everything Lyra had revealed. The alien platform beneath him shimmered, pulsating faintly with energy. Around him, the darkness of the Nexus chamber gave way to something far more surreal, a living, breathing environment that seemed to shift and respond to his every move. Lyra stood opposite him, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. Yet, for the first time, there was no trace of cold calculation in her gaze. She seemed uncertain, vulnerable. "The final test isn't about strength or cunning," she said, her voice low but steady. "It's about trust, vulnerability, a connection." Alex frowned, his hands clenching into fists. "Another test. I fought creatures, survived your traps, and proved I'm not a coward. What more do you want from me?" Lyra stepped closer, her movements graceful yet deliberate. "This isn't about fighting or surviving. It's about something deeper, something your kind rarely understands. You must open yourself completely to me, Alex. Let me see who you truly are." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Alex's pulse quickened. "You're not making any sense. What does that even mean?" Lyra tilted her head, her expression softening. "It means you must trust me enough to let down your guard. No lies, no masks, just you." The platform around them shifted, the glowing energy condensing into intricate patterns beneath their feet. The air grew warmer, charged with an inexplicable tension. Alex's heart raced as he tried to make sense of her words, and the growing unease in his chest. "Why does it feel like I'm being trapped again?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. "Because vulnerability feels like a trap," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's the only way forward." The space around them began to change, the darkness replaced by a strange, dreamlike landscape. They were no longer on the alien ship. Instead, they stood in a forest bathed in soft, golden light. The air smelled of earth and rain, and the sound of distant water filled the silence. It was almost peaceful. "What is this place?" Alex asked, looking around. "It's a memory," Lyra said. "A fragment of my world, long before it was destroyed. I want you to understand what I've lost." She moved to stand beside him, her voice soft. "My people had everything: technology, power, knowledge. But we lost what truly mattered: connection, compassion. We became cold, calculating, vulnerable only to ourselves. That's what destroyed us in the end." Alex turned to her, the bitterness in his voice unshakable. "And now you're testing if we're the same, if we're worth saving." "Yes," she said, her golden eyes meeting his. "But it's more than that. I need to know if I can trust you, Alex, if there's hope for us to face what's coming together." The sincerity in her voice caught him off guard. She wasn't just testing him. She was bearing a piece of herself, risking rejection in a way he hadn't expected. "You're asking me to trust you after everything you've put me through," Alex said, his voice tight. "Why should I?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze falling to the ground. "Because I'd put you through what I've endured myself. I've been judged, tested, pushed to my limits. I wanted to see if you could understand, if you could handle what's coming." Her vulnerability disarmed him. Alex wanted to stay angry, to demand answers, but something in her tone made him pause. He realized she wasn't just testing him. She was pleading with him. "All right," he said finally, his voice soft. "I'll trust you. But I need you to promise me something." Lyra looked up, her eyes hopeful. "What?" "Be honest with me," Alex said. "No more games, no more tests. If we're going to face this threat together, I need to know the truth." Lyra nodded, her expression solemn. "You have my word." The golden forest around them began to dissolve, replaced once again by the glowing expanse of the Nexus chamber. But the air between them felt different now, charged not with tension, but with understanding. Lyra stepped closer, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "You've passed the final test, Alex. You've proven that your kind is more than what I feared. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." Her words were quiet but powerful, and for the first time, Alex felt a strange warmth spreading through him. It wasn't victory. It was something deeper, something he couldn't yet name. "What happens now?" he asked. Lyra smiled, a genuine, almost human smile. "Now we prepare. Together." The final decision. The cold, mechanical hum of the Nexus chamber resonated around Alex as he stood at the heart of Lyra's ship, staring at the massive, pulsating orb that seemed to power the entire vessel. The air crackled with tension, thick with the weight of what was to come. Beside him, Lyra stood silent, her golden eyes fixed on the orb, as if it held the answers to 1,000 unspoken questions. "This is it, isn't it?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The endgame." Lyra nodded, her gaze unwavering. "The machine intelligence, the architect, is on the brink of reaching your world. If we don't stop it here, Earth will fall, just like my home did." Alex clenched his fists. Every instinct told him to run, to find a way out of this nightmare, but he knew that wasn't an option. He had seen the destruction in Lyra's memories, felt the fear in her voice when she spoke of the architect. This was bigger than him, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. "What do we have to do?" he asked, forcing the tremor from his voice. Lyra turned to him, her expression grave. "The architect's fleet is vast, its reach unparalleled. The only way to stop it is to destroy its central node, a core buried deep within the fleet's command ship. And how do we do that?" Alex asked, though he already suspected the answer wouldn't be simple. Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering for the briefest moment. "I've linked my ship to the architect's network. It's how I've been tracking its movements. But to sever the connection, to destroy the node, it requires a direct interface, a sacrifice." Alex frowned. "Sacrifice? What are you saying?" She stepped closer, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "If I interface with the architect's core, I can overload its systems, forcing a collapse. But the process is irreversible. It will destroy me." Alex's heart sank. There has to be another way. "There isn't," Lyra said firmly. "This is what I was created for. To be the failsafe. To do what no one else can." Alex shook his head. "No, I won't let you throw your life away." Lyra's expression softened, a rare glimpse of vulnerability breaking through her stoic facade. "It's not your choice to make, Alex. This is the path I've chosen." He stepped forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "You don't have to do this alone. Let me help. There has to be another way, a way where we both make it out alive." Lyra stared at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes searching his face. "You don't understand what you're offering. If you interface with the architect, it will strip you bare, see every memory, every thought. It will consume you. Maybe, Alex said, his voice steady. But I'd rather take that chance than let you die for this. You've already lost so much. You deserve more than this. Lyra's gaze softened, and for the first time, Alex saw something he hadn't expected. Tears, faint but real, glistening in the corners of her eyes. You're willing to risk everything for a world that doesn't even know you're fighting for it. Isn't that what you've been doing this whole time? Alex countered. Isn't that what makes us worth saving? For a moment, the room was silent, the hum of the ship fading into the background. Then, Lyra nodded, a small bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. You humans, always so stubborn. She reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. If we do this together, there's no guarantee either of us will survive. But I trust you. Alex nodded, his resolve firm. Then let's finish this. The interface. The glowing orb in the center of the chamber began to shift, opening to reveal a swirling vortex of light and energy. Lyra guided Alex to the edge, her hand never leaving his shoulder. This is it, she said. Once we begin, there's no turning back. Let's do it, Alex said, stepping forward. The energy from the vortex was almost unbearable, searing his skin and filling his mind with a cacophony of voices, whispers, screams, and a low mechanical hum that felt like the heartbeat of the architect itself. Together, Alex and Lyra reached out, their hands touching the edge of the vortex. The moment their fingers made contact, the room erupted in light. Alex felt his mind being pulled into the void, his thoughts unraveling as the architect's presence engulfed him. He saw it all, worlds consumed, lives extinguished, the relentless march of the machine. But amidst the chaos, he felt Lyra's presence, steady and unwavering. Together, they pushed back, their combined will forcing cracks into the architect's seemingly impenetrable core. The final moment. The energy around them reached a fever pitch, and Alex knew they were out of time. Lyra, he shouted, his voice barely audible over the deafening roar. We have to end this now. She nodded, her golden eyes meeting his one last time. Thank you, Alex, for reminding me what it means to fight for something greater. With a final surge of strength, they unleashed their combined energy into the core. The vortex shattered, and the architect's presence dissipated in a blinding explosion of light. The aftermath. When Alex opened his eyes, he was lying on a grassy hill under a clear, star-filled sky. The hum of the ship was gone, replaced by the gentle rustle of wind. He sat up, disoriented, and looked around. Lyra? He called out, his voice breaking. There was no response, but as he looked up at the stars, he felt her presence, a quiet, lingering warmth that told him she was still with him in some way. The fight was over. Earth was safe, but Alex knew he would never forget the woman who had taught him what it meant to trust, to fight, and to believe in something greater than himself.